Hello, Guardians, and welcome to Destiny Reset, episode 210. This show is about anything and everything related to the Destiny franchise. If you love playing Destiny 2 as much as we do, you're in the right place. This reset, we're ready to take a deep dive into the wealth of changes we will see this October, including the Armor 2.0 preview, Luke Smith's Director's Cut, and some exciting improvements coming to the Crucible and Shadowkeep and beyond. Hello, Guardians, and welcome. It's AER0KNIGHT and CyborgSasquatch. Hello, friend.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good morning, Vietnam. Wait, no,
I was going to say, wrong show, and we got another 22 minutes before it's morning, buddy.
Okay, fair enough.
Not
How
yet.
you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to prep myself for this show, this episode. We didn't have a whole lot happen this week, so,
Yeah, it's a slow one. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just worried we're not going to have enough to...
We'll just have to talk about, like, cupcakes or something.
Yeah, like last week, we fit in some ice cream and such.
Do you have any other shops around you that do the little tiny bunt cakes?
Maybe, no. Not that I know
There's
of.
one called Nothing Bunt Cakes. Get it?
Very nice.
So they have little individually sized bunt cakes, and they are so good.
Oh,
I had one of
sure.
those tonight.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
This will be our only tangent for this episode.
That's the one. I had to go ahead and squeeze it
Get
in
it out of the
now.
way. Dude, what a week, man. Like, we just spent a
Every
little bit of
day.
time prepping for this episode, but it's not possible for us to cover everything. I don't think.
It's just not possible unless we did a 3-parter.
Right.
But we're not Luke Smith.
Like some people do.
We don't do 30,000 word treatises on our show in writing. Well, I don't think many people would read it.
But it was amazing.
Hey, absolutely. Yeah,
Some great information.
No shade on that. I've loved every bit of it. So we're going to talk about that among many other things this week.
Yeah.
And we've got a show to talk about Destiny here.
Yeah, I texted you like 3/4 of the way through the week before we got part 3, and I'm like, dude, we're gonna. It looks like we're gonna get part 3 this week. Like, I was thinking this was gonna be like a part a week, and then he dropped 2, and then it looked like we were gonna get 3, and I'm like, how are we going to cover all this? And then I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, we had a live stream this week as well. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So much.
I'd already forgot that even happened by at the end of the week.
I no joke. I did. Like, obviously we remembered it, but after all, part 2, part 3 drop, I'm like, that's right. We had Armor 2.0 live stream. We got to talk about that.
Yup.
Anyways, we better get to it.
Enough talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about it.
Teases for the teases.
Yep. I don't think we have any major announcements this week.
No.
Get ready for cross save. It's coming Wednesday.
Oh, it's so exciting.
I'll give you this much. If you're cross saving and you need to know about clans, just keep an eye on the Discord if you're in the derp clans.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll put a PSA about something. Inevitably, some people are going to want to move around, and we understand that. So we'll be prepped and ready for you.
I have to throw this out real quick at the beginning of the show because we're talking about cross save. Just in case there's a Guardian that can maybe ease it for me a little bit. Guardians, real quick. I've had D2 on PC since it launched. Played it for a while. Haven't played it in a long time. I'm getting a chive error. It will not launch the game. I've tried everything I can find. Drivers, reinstall, scan and repair. Everything you can think of. Nothing is working. If anyone has any information on why I can't get D2 to launch like at all on my PC,
Help this man.
please tweet at AER0KNIGHT. I'm like on my 4th night of troubleshooting, dude.
Yeah.
anyways, we don't need to spend any more time on that. But if anybody has any information that they think might help me, I really appreciate it.
We need your help.
Please. Okay, moving on.
Guardians, we need your help.
Cross save's almost here, dude.
Can't play on PC, and he needs your credit card.
It's like, I'm like, when this happened the first night, I'm thinking, oh, I got time for cross save launches, and now we're about into the week of cross save launching, and I am stumped, dude. Like, I've tried everything I can find.
It's going to be terrible if the solution is that you have to build a PC. Oh no, a new PC.
I know, right?
Oh man,
just no way. Anyways, I don't even know. Hopefully I'll get it resolved the next couple days, but I'm so pumped for cross save, dude. I just want to be able to boot it up and play together.
You had me worried because I had uninstalled Destiny 2 because I didn't have enough room on my boot drive for all of Destiny 2 and everything else I needed to be on that. So I had deleted it, uninstalled it, put it on another drive, and got it all patched up and ready. But I hadn't launched it, and then I went and I, bought the Forsaken Plus annual pass, like all that stuff, and installed that, and still hadn't like launched it. And when you told me that you're having problems, like, I think I gotta make sure this works.
Dude, it's so weird. Like, there's no thread out there any newer than like March of 18, and most of them are in 2017. So it's like, I feel like I'm the only person that is having this problem anymore right now. And like I said, I've found everything out there that I can find. I've tried some things on my own. I can't figure it out. I don't know. I'm stumped. It's one of those things you'll eventually figure out, but I really hope it's by Wednesday.
Yeah, me too.
So, anyways, that's my current status on PC. So, at least my PS4s are working.
Yeah, true that. It's not like you can't play. That's a worse problem.
Yes.
Well, now the announcements are closed. We have so much news that we're going to split up some of the news into 2 parts this week. Not different 2 shows, but we're gonna separate these segments, if you will.
Yes.
First up, we're going to talk about this week at Bungie. We're going to talk a little about the Armor 2.0 live stream, and et cetera, et cetera. And then in our main part of the show, we're going to talk about the director's cut state of the game, because there's so many things, and we're going to try to cover what we felt was important to us because we're selfish. That's how things work. So this week at Bungie, we released our director's cut. If you didn't catch this week, Luke Smith, who I still need to get a confirmation on his title. Is it franchise director? Something like that.
Something of that nature.
Put out 3 parts in writing, a director's cut, looking at the state of the game, talking about a lot of things they've learned over the past 6 months, even that they've learned in the past couple of years, and where the game is going moving forward. So we're gonna swing back to that. Those are all available on Bungie.net if you want to read them in full. I would encourage it because it is a very rare and transparent look into not just our favorite games development, but into any games development.
Definitely.
That you won't see this much of a treatise on what's really going on.
I did have that moment this week. I thought it was just being involved like we are for how many years now, and remembering when D2 launched and seeing all the things. I mean, I won't say all the things, but the response to D2's launch and Luke Smith being on the forefront of that, and some of, the aggravations people had with Mr. Smith and this or that, obviously not necessarily valid or anything. They were just frustrated with the state of the game. And then this week, seeing all the praise for Luke Smith, it made me kind of chuckle because, I feel like Bungie has something on the back end where they're like, okay, yep, you've hit that threshold, team member. You will stay in the shadows for at least 6
all right,
months.
We're gonna trot you out for 6 months. You're gonna take all the heat, And then when you're just totally run down, we're gonna put you back in the stables, let you recoup for like a year, and let everybody forget about that while somebody else takes the heat.
It's just funny. It's
And
like
then we'll trot you back out. You're gonna be the hero again.
it's like, don't get me wrong, the Destiny community is amazing, and even when people say things, I mean, sometimes it's some guardians go too far here and there, but you know, the majority is pretty awesome guardians and receive things well. But it was just funny to see,
because I saw somebody like replying to a post talking about it. It was actually a really funny tweet by Paul Tassi, and somebody responded and was like, "Oh yeah, you know, it's just funny seeing the same people that were hating on Luke Smith 2 years ago. Now they're praising him." And that's such a generalization, and like it's not true at all. They probably couldn't find anybody that was like specifically
the same people
doing that. It's just a straw man argument, but you know, that goes both ways. And like, I'm sure to be in his chair, you have to get a lot of criticism before you get any praise.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
Really,
I even
anybody.
remember responding to him. So I don't remember exactly, but it's back around D2's launch, or you know, a little bit after that, and just seeing a thread or something, and I remember replying to him and being like, dude, just know most of us don't think you broke the game. Like, we know it's a team effort and you have good ideas, and sometimes those things don't pan out, and that's okay. Like, it's like, good grief, man, how do you just take it, you know?
Well, the thing to remember about Luke Smith is that he like got his start doing what we do, like not specifically, but like he was a game critic, you know, like he was a games journalist. Like his job in what he did and how he got his door or his foot in the door at Bungie was, you know, critiquing and criticizing the games and offering suggestions and talking about what worked and what didn't and things of that nature. So I'm sure he's used to or at least expects to have a little bit of a thick skin, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Anyways, long story short, he's back. I mean, and he's been back for, he never went anywhere, but he's back talking to us and has been for a little bit here now, especially this week, like you said. So much information, so much awesome information, dude. Like, even the looking back portion was very interesting in part one. All of it, just super interesting. So we got plenty to talk about.
So we're going to talk about that coming up in the show. But first off, we're going to talk about the next focus in the TWAB, which is the Armor 2.0 stream that gave us some details on the Armor 2.0 system coming up here with Shadowkeep, which is exciting, I think. What did you think of the stream and what we saw, man?
Yeah, dude, I actually...
Just overall.
I got to it late, so I missed a little bit, but the Dirt Fam caught me up in our stream. Obviously, one of the first things I noticed, because you never know if it's placeholder numbers, was I couldn't believe it, the Glimmer Cap being raised. I know it's probably the smallest thing of it all, but how many years now, right? We're like,
just raise it up. Why
Yeah,
is it
raise
so
the Glimmer
small? But that just tells me we're going to need it.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, I already at this point have needed it several different times, but yeah, it's going to be nice. I mean, the subtle things, I'm just touching on the subtle things right now, the random little nuggets, but the sparrow and your ghost showing up on your character screen.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
That was a nice touch. Yeah. It still feels a little like weird to see your sparrow outside, like behind your character. It almost seems off a little bit. I don't know if it's just because it's new, but it's definitely cool to be able to see it right there.
Changes in Destiny and the UI always feel weird for a while.
It's like, hold on
until you get used to them and they just become the new normal.
Yeah. But anyways, talking about the meat and potatoes of it, the Armor 2.0, man. I mean, there was even more there to digest than I thought there was going to be. I mean, I don't know, where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about the actual slotting of the leveling of the armor, I guess? It's
mods
just,
and leveling and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. So like, it reminds me of many RPG like like upgrade trees and things like that, like where you're going to have, choices to make on what you want on your armor. And then, there's a cost associated with each. I like that, you'll have to make choices, but you have a little freedom in making your build.
Mm-hmm.
That one thing that they did clarify that I really like is that once you unlock a mod or you get a mod, it's not a consumable like we're used to now. It's like a permanent unlock.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost doesn't come from like having to have copies of the mod. You got to have materials to slot it, but it's more to do with like, this costs you 3 void energy, and do you have enough void energy in your, in your armor to slot what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to dump energy or XP or whatever it is into the armor to upgrade it and stuff like that.
I always have a weird balance, at least for me, with those kind of things. When I realized the same thing, when they said that once you have it, you can slot it in, I'm like, I was thinking it didn't cost anything to do that. And those, to a certain degree, I don't like that. I like for it to cost something. And then obviously I realized it does. You do, I think, have to pay something to reslot it. It just doesn't delete it. It doesn't go away, which is the nice feature. Yeah.
And they mentioned like there's new materials, enhanced prisms, and then there's the return of ascendant shards. We have an enhancement cores still. All of these are part of the upgrade process.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know exactly, how, but I'm sure it has to do with upgrading the armor piece itself. But I can imagine some, seasonal or more desirable or advanced mods could require like a higher cost to slot it as well,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whether that's, Ascendant Shard or something, we don't know. But I think it's great that Ascendant Shards are returning when we're going to be on the moon.
Yeah, right. Yep. It's classic.
Some great things that I do like, that we'll be able to pull out copies of our exotic armor that will be 2.0 enabled. I do like that.
Yeah, obviously the only downfall of that is you're not going to have maybe the role that you have right now. Yeah,
they mentioned it's going to be a static role, but I don't know if that means like the role that you have now, like, because that's how it works on collections, right? Like whatever the role that you earned is what you get out of it. Mm-hmm. If you pull out a armor, that's how it works, right?
I'm not sure, because I've pulled out some stuff before, like my Peregrine Greaves. I think I grabbed another one. I don't know that. I'm not 100% certain that is how it works. Because I
don't know. I don't pull out a lot of copies of armor.
Yeah, I don't either, but I feel like it's even maybe possibly doesn't even have like the additional perk nodes on the ones you pull out of the collections. I almost want to test it now. Anyways,
I guess because it's going to be armor 2.0, it won't have any perks.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. That's definitely part of it as well. That'll play a role.
Maybe it'll just have like a standard amount of energy. Like, what are they going to make exotic armor pieces certain energy, or will it like? Can you roll a void or solar or arc energy on a certain exotic armor?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right, because
those affinities are.
They mentioned there's like affinities for different mods, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which that basically keeps the grind in place, for sure. Right. That threw me off for a minute when they started talking about that. Like basically, you can't. You'll get arms to drop that are void, let's say, and you can only socket void
affinity mods
or something
into
that.
Like they mention like hand cannon reloaders were associated with Void or something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't talk about it on the stream, but Luke Smith did tweet that there will be like general reloader mods, like I think, special or like kind of like we have now mods like light arms and heavy and different things like that. I think he said there's 11, and those will be automatically unlocked. And I think those have a higher cost. I think he said those cost 6, while if you use a specific reloader mod, it has a lower cost. But I think he mentioned the effect is the same. So it's almost like, okay, if you want to specialize in reloading your sniper, if you can get that mod, it will cost less and give you that specific set. I think now the way it works is they're more effective if it's more specific.
Right.
But I think that will not be the case with the new mods.
Mm-hmm. There's just so much
for sure.
to take in right now, man.
Yeah.
So much to try to figure out if they covered or if it's still a question
and
in
then
the
some
air.
mods stack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's interesting. There's a lot of cool intricacies to this, and then they showed off the stats. With intellect, discipline, strength
Back
on top of what we have. I think the thing that really made me love what they did is that they were smart, and they show the breakpoints and the timers on those breakpoints, which is something that we never had, in old school Destiny 1. So if you had like 7 intellect or whatever, you could look it up. People had figured out, okay, at this much, it takes this long for your super to come back. And a lot of people that were nerds had that memorized, but I like that it's in the game. It makes it accessible so that you can figure it out. Okay, if I put, 50 intellect, I get my super back in 2.5 minutes or whatever it is.
right.
That was really smart. And so it's on a scale of 0 to 100. So there's a lot more room in there, I guess, to play.
Yeah. No, I was loving the numbers, man. I mean, to have intellect, discipline, strength backed, and then the 3 we have now, and then those factors there, and then they're showing us the armor. It's definitely RPG elements and a lot of numbers that are. It seems like a good, nice new foundation for the way gear will work. I'm still a little up in the air on like the affinities and how restrictive that's going to be. I mean, obviously you don't want the grind to be completely gone with these kind of options on every piece of gear. There's got to be some sort of grind still there, obviously for this game. But again, it's a classic, like we just got to get our hands on it.
Yeah. And then there was some quality of life stuff. They showed off some specific sandbox tools that they showed off. Bottom Tree Night Stalker, they've made some improvements. They said it does additional damage. There's some better synergy with the old Wombo Combo, if you're familiar. That'll make some improvements. I think that's exciting for hunters. And then Weapons of Light coming back, man.
Crazy.
So excited. They even mention in the director's cut, in one of them where they're talking about changes to supers and how buffs and things will stack, that Weapons of Light is going to be one of the top modifying buffs that you can have, even above well. I'm excited.
I'm pumped, dude. As a Titan,
bubble boy again,
as a fellow Titan. Yep, I know. And then, of course, with all this stuff going on, Guardians immediately were like hoping they were going to show some sort of like loadout system for all these. I mean, because they even took that structure with the stream with the 3 team members that were there. Deej was letting them run through, show them how they basically were going to create a specific build for themselves. But no loadouts. You'll still need to use your third party.
Need Dim or Ishtar or whatever you want to use to cultivate those. It's going to be even more important with the, Arc Solar Void you know, you're probably going to have different armors that you try to build one way or the other, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to have those different armor sets. But I mean, I've kind of generally done that. You know, it's not as important, but in the past year or so, like, you know, I would masterwork an armor set, you know, that was all like solar or something, if that's what I use the most in game stuff.
Right. Yeah.
All like, seemed like I've used a lot more void this year, so I've tried to get a bunch of void pieces set up and curated. But that's going to be very important with the new system, where you're going to need, you know, for the mods that you want or the build that you want, you're going to need to have, you know, very specific builds, and you can mix and match. You know, the one thing I'm curious about that they haven't addressed is, with the system now, when you masterwork a piece of armor, you know, you get that resistance in your super for that element, right? So if I have a masterworked void arm or gauntlet, then when I'm in my super, I have increased resistance to that element's damage. And I'm curious if, like, is there even masterworking on the new armor sets, right? Like when you max the energy up to 10, like, is masterworking a thing, and does that mechanic still exist, or is it going away?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah.
So I'm eager to see how that plays out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was similar to you as well. Like, I kind of have my sets. Obviously, I usually have a primary PvE set and then PvP, but then I wouldn't masterwork it, but I would attempt to have, you know, a couple different, 2 or 3 different elemental armor sets. But this definitely seems like it's going to push more to that. I don't know, man. I'm pumped to see all the numbers, dude. It's exciting. I mean, it's always a fun thing when you have a favorite game that allows you to just get lost in the builds and such. So that depth is always welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's somebody was, I don't remember who it was that was saying it, but somebody was saying, yeah, we're going to be spending a lot more time playing dollies, as they call it, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, they're right. And we're going to, like, more than ever, we need functionalities to do stuff like that in the companion app. Like, I want to be able to look at my builds, slot mods, like apply materials, like do useful stuff in the mechanic, like in that app, you know?
Right.
So that, like, if I am on my lunch break or something, I can open up that app and I can play around with my Guardian and my build, so that when I'm actually playing the game, you know, that evening, I'm not spending an hour while my friends are waiting on me to, like, play around with my build and stuff. You know, I'm actually playing.
Definitely. Yeah, when you log in, you're spending your time playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy those mini games, but I definitely agree. Like, if you can do anything like that outside of the game, that's always a plus.
Well, yeah, and it kind of grows, you know, like the world, I guess, for like what you can do in the game. I don't know if I'm saying that the right way, but
I
think you get what I'm saying. Like, it makes it feel bigger. It makes it feel like more bigger outside of what you're just doing when you're, like, at the keys or on the controller, right?
Yeah. One thing I did want to touch on before we move past the stream, they showed off again the almost transmogrification of the armor. I'm still confused myself on if this is, I mean, were they showing general armor had this capability on this stream? Because previously, you know, we had just read in the TWAB or whatever that it would be Eververse stuff. Was it just Eververse that they showed that was on that submenu?
The set that I was looking at, like on the Titan, I remember them showed off,
because they haven't confirmed that
it showed off Eververse pieces, but also like some blue and green, like common and uncommon rarity helmets I remember seeing.
Because it was still up in the air and not confirmed whether that was going to be a part. Because when they told us about that, it was only about Eververse stuff, wasn't it? I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know if we're going to be able to, slot in like ornaments of other types of sets. I mean, they did mention like, so most legendary sets that are in the game right now, I believe you'll be able to get 2.0 versions of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they said everything.
But man, I mean, it would be great if, you kind of like were able to, I don't know, say for instance, like any Crucible related armor set, you could have one set and wear any of the variations, right?
Yeah.
As like a ornament or whatever. But it seems like it's just going to be Eververse stuff.
That's what it seems like, but it looked like to me there was more than just Eververse in there, and I could have just been not seeing it right. But that kind of plays in there too, what you said though, because they did specifically say that you can that all armor in the game will drop 2.0 versions. You just have to go get it again, which didn't exactly some that didn't settle well with, and others are like, well, that's fine. I'll go grind for it again. At least I can go get it. But that kind of plays in.
Some stuff you're not going to be able to get, like faction stuff, stuff that's not in the game and not going to be in the game. But basically they said, look, whatever drops
game, right now.
It's not even whatever drops right now. What Dimji said on Twitter is whatever's in the game when, what's it called? When Shadowkeep launches, you'll be able to get 2.0 versions of. Yeah. But that, doesn't tell us the whole picture because we don't know what they might pull out,
for sure.
But I would expect like anything that's in your annual pass or some of that stuff, I expect I would see. He did say, anything that's a raid, so stuff like that, we'll be able to get those versions of.
Obviously, like the old Trials gear, you can't. That's an example. Or like you said, the
so like
gear.
If they have new Iron Banner gear starting next year, like I doubt you'll be able to get the old version, Yeah.
I was thinking for a second when you brought that up that it kind of maybe answered our questions on the transmog on general armor, but it doesn't really. That their answer to that, or at least their description of that, is basically just saying if you like the armor and you want it, you can go get it. Because one of the team members on Twitter uses a specific example of like going to get some Titan armor from Sloan. Like it'll be 2.0 if you go pick it up.
Yeah.
After Shadowkeep. So, anyways,
maybe obviously they may be able to refine this stuff over time. Mm-hmm. I would just love to see a system where, I have like maybe 5 to 10 or however many like different armor core sets, and maybe those update every season or every year. And then the ones that correspond with them, like, all right, let's say, the different world drops for the vendors, or all Strike or all Vanguard, and all Crucible stuff. Like you have one set and then you can just swap in the variations of those like ornaments, so that it makes it easier to manage your inventory when you're dealing with the 2.0 stuff and you have like different elements that you want on different things, and then all the mods you gotta slot. Like I want a system that allows us to keep our inventory simple and then make it complex when we're actually messing with the armor itself, with like the different variations and stuff that we can do. The system right now obviously breaks our inventories because we have 500 slots in our vault, and probably 400 of those in mine are armor,
No,
with
definitely.
perk combinations.
Yeah, I'm the same. And then got the characters maxed out. Their armor slots. But yeah, I hope that they're really hitting on something with this. Obviously, it's trial and error. It did get me thinking. I never was like a big time long term WoW player. I did play WoW, but it made me wonder for you WoW players out there, if like they experience this through the life, span of WoW. I mean, even up to now, obviously, it just seems like, Bungie's trying to figure out the system, right? In multiple different areas of the game. And do you, I guess the question is, do you ever hit it, get it right? And, we're kind of hitting that point now where, remember back in the day, we were leaving weapons behind. Now we're not doing that anymore, but we're leaving armor behind now, right? And it's because of a new system that they're trying out. Now I welcome it. I mean, it looks amazing. But it's like, do you, we just go along for the ride. Do you ever hit that?
Are we then a year or 2 years away from leaving everything up behind again for the third time, fourth time, for a new system and a new title? Mm-hmm. How many times do we have to lose our investment and stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that gets frustrating as like a long-term player.
Yeah,
I want to keep the stuff that I earned and worked really hard for, and like be able to bring up my favorite stuff and have it be relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I get like new content, you leave old gear behind, but to be able to even in the sake of moving on to a full-blown sequel. Even to still be able to have it, that's why I hope we are really getting to this ever evolving world that, I mean, you and I have hoped for and talked about wanting, to where even if our old armor is irrelevant, we can still keep it, which that's the case now. But like you said, it'll be interesting to see when a D3 equivalent launches. But
and remember, this is the second time already that the current armor system is being changed in Destiny 2 itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've already had to make all of our other old stuff irrelevant that didn't have perk sets and all this other different stuff, Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, obviously that's just part of playing games. It's part of game development. Like, you're always trying to fine-tune the system. But hopefully we can land on a system maybe like this that just needs some fine-tuning over the years and not a complete overhaul, right?
Well, I think, that's the benefit. One thing that they mention is, like, by having these individual mods and stuff, and even mods that will expire with each season, like, it allows them to just tweak a mod or a particular perk, and not have it, like, totally break everything or make it would make, your armor that's perma-rolled irrelevant, right?
Right.
If they took out, some reloader perk because it wasn't working right, or like made an adjustment, it wouldn't destroy that perfect roll you've got on your chest piece or something that you've been wearing in Masterwork. To like, it'd just be a mod and you can replace it with another mod, if you didn't like it anymore. Yeah, so that's definitely a better system that they can grow on and tweak compared to what we've got now. Where if, there's a perk that's breaking everything, you take it out, like, it just sucks. So, another thing that they showed off at towards the latter half of the stream was talking about ammo finder perks. And there will be a specific effect that you'll be able to notice when your ammo finder perk has dropped ammo for you. So the box itself will have like a particular unique glow on it. I'm hoping this also means they've fixed those perks.
Hopefully.
Because there's some that actually don't actually work. Like heavy ammo finder does not work. It's broke. It's been broke. And it's never been addressed. Scavenger perks work, but finder perks do not. So hopefully they've retooled those and they function properly now, and you'll be able to see when they work. Which would be awesome.
Yeah, there's so much here, man. Like even the breakdown of how the gear drops, what it costs to socket things, the affinities. There's just a lot we got to get our hands on here and see how it feels and how it works.
Well, we'll have time to talk about it. It's just the first introduction, and as these things develop as we're playing and as we get them and we get a preview, we'll find out more and more and be able to talk about them all the time.
Yep.
Because they'll be in the game, and I'm sure those builds will become important, you know, and there will be really cool builds that we can put together and talk about. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man.
Can't wait to spend hours staring at my character. I said facetiously. Another thing they showed off in the stream, but then they actually talked about as well in the director's cut, was a power bonus from the artifact. Did you notice that?
Yes.
So
yep.
There will be a XP like container on your artifact. On the screenshot that we have from the event or from the stream, it was 55k. And as you level that up, you actually get a power bonus to your existing power. I thought that was kind of cool.
What I've seen is, and none of this is confirmed, but like it's possibly, I don't remember if they said this on stream or not. It's beyond 950 that possibly that like where the power bonus comes into play. I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot to learn.
So I think the context in which Luke Smith talked about it was that the part of the power bonus is for players
it was in the write-up. Yep.
Don't level up as much, right? Like that are not on the power grind as hard.
Right.
I think the difference is like the pinnacle rewards, pinnacle powerful rewards or whatever they're called.
Yeah. And it's this is on the artifact we're talking, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's across all your characters, right? It's
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Anyway, also it resets every season.
Yeah, right. Yep. It's this again is something that I want to know more about, you know?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I just want to see.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So, very cool.
So that was the 2.0 stream. I remember them talking about, and I was listening to like the last 15 minutes. I didn't get to watch it, but I remember them talking about showing off one of the finishing moves, but I missed that. So I don't know if they actually did they?
Yeah, they showed Wordle showed the Titan just kind of doing the massive punch into one of the enemies.
Did it do a lot of damage? Like, does it?
I honestly, I'd have to go back and watch it. It didn't seem as though, like, I can't even remember if it wasn't the main boss, because she did it on the strike they were on was the Cabal boss, and it was the second room, so it wasn't the final hit even.
Seems
so
like those are for majors.
Yeah, I think it was just a major in that second room.
You know,
but I mean, it did take the enemy out. I just didn't see what the health was before. It was cool though.
Yeah.
Like anything like that, typically in video games is cool. I mean, the question immediately I have, like many have had at this point, is how is that going to work in the Crucible? And it's going to feel amazing to do it, as long as it's not super cheesy.
Yeah.
Any kind of finishing moves are fun. I'm trying to think of games that have had that over the years. Well, obviously Gears of War.
Gears had them. That's the first thing I think about.
Gears was brutal anyways, and then to have the finishing moves was just over the top fun. But yeah.
Mortal Kombat.
Oh, right. Yeah. Old school.
The obvious originator. And then there's like some of the recent Halo games I've heard have finishing moves.
Yes.
And in similar system, like you would unlock them or like purchase them to be able to do them. And there were some really cool ones.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a cool addition. Obviously, Bungie's, I would assume, they'll implement it correctly for all aspects of the game.
Yeah.
So
it seems like there's definitely some focus on the Eververse for like purchasing these. You know?
Yeah, I definitely hope it's also in PvP and done properly, because it would stink if you couldn't use a finishing move in the Crucible.
Oh, you know it's gonna be like there's gonna be such a huge draw for people to buy those in PvP. You know, be able to crush somebody, like, you know, like just finish them a certain way and stuff. But like, I don't know, man. It seems like it's gonna be hard to implement an up close finishing move
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's gonna be
Like
interesting.
maybe there's
to see.
some that you don't do up close. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because the Titan one's obvious. You just lean into a nice
and
hefty
there was
punch.
a Warlock one they showed where you like, do this palm melee thing, but like if they're all melee based, I can imagine a lot more people spending time getting up close.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be very popular.
Yeah, it's not like Destiny's one of those games where you can just, for the most part, see yourself in a position where you sneakily get behind someone. That doesn't happen very often.
No, it's too
So
fast.
it's not like it's not like
you can sneak
from
up
the
and
back.
like grab somebody by the neck or whatever all the time. Like everybody's moving and strafing and dashing around and stuff,
Yeah, I mean, my thought is like, okay, somebody's got to have like 5 HP for you to be able to do this, but then how often are you going to be able to use it?
Yeah.
But I mean, how amazing would it feel though if you're like on a 3-4 kill streak, just running down a lane, and you get to the last person and they're damaged down to whatever it takes, and you just finish them off with a nice crispy finishing move.
Yeah.
That would feel
gonna be
pretty
great.
darn amazing.
Well, that's the news this week. That's the major stuff beyond the director's cut we're going to talk about here in a second. I don't think there was any other news besides the fact, let's look back at the TWAB. I forgot we were in the middle of that, right?
I don't know why.
The Levante Prize. This is a cool thing, man. Destiny.
Yeah,
is so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're announcing a fashion prize. Pretty cool looking emblem that you can earn by being fashionable. Every month, they said we'll host a fashion show of sorts, and winners will earn this sweet emblem. So they said stay tuned for more details. They're going to be talking more about it. I'm looking forward to playing more dollies with my characters.
Yes. Yep.
And seeing how cool I can make them look. I wonder
Anything
if
community
they'll do
based
like,
is cool.
Best dressed, funniest, like most creative, every month, or if it's just going to be like, all right, well, this person won,
Yeah, like you looked the best. Still cool though. Yeah, I would think surely they'll maybe do some sort of themed stuff here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, anything community based like this is cool. Yeah, this is where emblems work well, right? Like it's cool to have a very unique emblem because of something you did or something you won, or
well, as well as an emblem that anybody can really earn, right? I mean, anybody can make something cool, but outside of being able to draw something or create an awesome video, like how's the regular Joe get a cool emblem? So this is a fun way anybody can earn that.
Yep.
Very excited. Much excited. Also, cross save is on the menu this reset. Get ready.
Crazy.
This Wednesday,
it's already here.
Let's see. So, they mentioned first off, Steam linking goes live Tuesday, August 20th. That's the first step if you want to migrate your PC account to Steam from Blizzard, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to need to do that. They encourage players to set up Steam Guard 2-factor authentication. I would definitely recommend 2FA on anything like that for sure. And then they talk about expansion, destinations, and activities. So cross-save launches August 21st. You'll need to keep in mind that if you want to access certain activities and destinations on other platforms, you will need to purchase the content. I think some things may change, but until New Light launches, they mentioned, for instance, if you're on a different account than where you have the content purchase, like you won't be able to launch the Dreaming City if you're on a different platform. They're changing how some of that works when New Light launches October 1st, but until then, you'll need to have purchased content to access it. Powerful rewards. They also mention if you don't have the content and you're playing, so they mention specifically if you don't own Forsaken and you receive gear, you'll receive that gear at below Forsaken power levels until Forsaken is purchased. So, for instance, if you're on a different platform and you've got a 750 power character, you'll get powerful drops at 380 on a different platform. So that all will change with New Light and Shadowkeep later this year.
Yep. That was one of those I read and had that moment where I'm like, wow, there's so much they have to think about.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do on the back end.
Be sure to check out that movie of the week with the, if you're a fan of Monty Python, The Search for the Holy Grail. Great parody send up there on that video. I thought it was just average until Shax showed up. And I was like, yes, this is it. Very funny. So that is the news this week.
There you go. That's it. Wrap this up.
AER Knight, it's my turn this week. How is your reset, buddy?
Well, I did a lot of reading this reset, Cyborg. I did play some. We're going to spend the majority of the reset, like we mentioned, talking about the director's cut, but very briefly, I mean, I'm just doing the Solstice grind, man. I'm taking my time with it. I haven't been playing a ton I've been playing Crucible. I mentioned that last week. And then this week, I actually haven't been on a whole lot, but I did graduate to my blue set. I know many have already finished this stuff and even some on 3 characters, but just kind of taking my time on the Solstice and sprinkling in Crucible here and there. But I'm probably only played maybe 2 nights this week, and I'm going to probably get hot and heavy this weekend and early next week to get my gear done so I don't, cut it down to the wire, because that is no fun when you have like 2 nights left and you have tons of grinding still to do. So, but yeah, that's been my week as far as Destiny goes. I'm squeezing in a little No Man's Sky here and there, still playing that, and playing plenty of Minecraft with my son. We're up to like 7 houses we've built and like 3 secret tunnels in our little neighborhood.
That's awesome.
We're having a blast. But anyways, man, what about you? What have you been up to this week?
I finished my Titan Solstice set.
Nice.
And got that title, the 2019 title.
Oh, cool.
Finished that off. And I was glad to be done with the Solstice stuff. It was too grindy.
Sure.
I've had too. Yeah. I think I'm just burnt out on grindy stuff like that this year.
We got to get a discourse question about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did 1 too. I mean, some people did 2 or 3 and they're just totally tired of it.
Craziness.
But hey, we want something to do, and they say, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
Give you something to grind.
Yeah, I think I'm playing it the way they intended, maybe. Not necessarily the way they intended, but the way that it doesn't feel as grindy. Just now hitting my blue set 3 weeks in. But you seem like you still felt like it was a bit grindy just doing your Titan set, and I can see that.
It just wasn't as fun as I would like it to be.
Yeah.
I would have rather spent more time doing unique things in the activity in the EAZ than having to run like 25 patrols on IO.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about for the show. That's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, I got that done. So now I'm trying to finish that Reckoner title, man. I've got like 2 weeks-ish to do so. And I got all the gear now. So now it's just about finishing the 4 triumphs where you've got to do very specific things with each roll, whether it's wins or kills or, send large blockers and this or that. And I'm hoping I can finish it. The deadline I'm against is trying to finish it in time to buy the pin. And and also have it behind me. But so I've got until the 31st to earn it. And there's some stuff that's just very time consuming that you've got to do. Like send, I think it's like 50 or 20. I don't remember how many of the large blockers. I mean, you can only do so many of those a game, you know. You have to defeat 50 high value targets in Gambit Prime. Like you get one of those a match.
Right.
So I don't know how long this is going to take me, but I know I've got a lot of Gambit Prime ahead of me. I mean, on each of them, I've got or already had, you know, some decent progress, but some of them I've got a lot left to do. So
you already have Hush?
No, I haven't even messed with Hush this season.
So you might be able to double up a little there, maybe not.
I thought about it, but for some of the stuff, you know, running a bow is not efficient.
Ideal.
Yeah, like Reaper, like the Reaper stuff. Like I don't need a bow on for that. Like maybe for some of the other things. So I'm kind of like I might do that as an afterthought, if it makes sense. But I don't know. I don't really care that much about that bow, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd want it just for the points.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be the last thing I pursue this season.
Wrong reason to be doing things, but don't judge me. But hey, yeah, that's what I'm up to. So let's talk about the director's cut, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Where do we begin? I guess with part one.
At the beginning. A lot of cool stuff talked about in this director's cut. Across 3 parts. I really enjoyed hearing about some of their decisions that were made and why things were a certain way and what they learned from it. Didn't always agree with why things were a certain way, but hey, you know, can't win them all.
Yes.
But I think what we did is we kind of went through and made some notes on some of them, what we felt was more notable things to talk about, things that are either controversial or eye-opening or interesting to talk about, changes or what's upcoming. So obviously, like we can't talk about every bullet point of what's discussed in this very big.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like you mentioned earlier, we highly recommend you guys to go read all 3 of them. If you don't want to read them, some fabulous content creators like Fallout and Houndish, they have covered each part on their channel, their YouTube channels. So they might.
Yeah, I would go as well. The Destiny Daily Roundup, which you might have heard about recently. Our friends Arrow and Danfinity do. They put those all to voice if you want to listen to them.
Yes.
And
that's right. I did see Danfinity tweet that out. Yep. Very cool.
That's a good source if you want to like just download a podcast form of it.
Yep.
So anywhere. So let's get into the nitty gritty.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about that. So one thing they came out and said that I guess was news, but not totally surprising. They mentioned that the past season's pace stretched the team a little thin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. We wondered about that and if they would be able to keep up. I mean, I'm a fan of the seasons. I know there's Guardians out there that aren't, but I mean, they definitely accomplish their goal for me, at least. It always seems like there's something to do. I mean, I feel like I can't keep up for the most part. So it makes sense to me that the pace was not sustainable for them. But, you know, as we get further into this director's cut, we learn about the plan for the other seasons. So it makes me wonder, I mean, it doesn't seem like they're backing off of that too much, at least as far as the feel.
The main thing I took from it and what does make sense is the seasons were challenging for the team. What I read when I read this was they were challenging for the team because, they were developing a new activity with a new mechanic every season.
Yeah.
Which is, that's definitely true. And I was at times surprised with how much that we were getting, with like brand new environments, brand new activities with brand new mechanics. I mean, I felt we certainly got our money's worth out of the annual pass this year.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's not wholly unsurprising with the amount of stuff they chalked into each of these seasons for us to do that it was a lot. And so Luke mentions that their goal, it seems in the future with this content, is to not be trying to produce a brand new activity with a brand new mechanic. Or maybe he just mentioned like not to have reinvented mechanics every season.
Yeah. I mean,
so that way, even if it is a new activity, it's not like reinventing the wheel every time, right?
Right, which is what they're doing. And I mean, they've done an excellent job, like you said, with the different iterations. But this, rolls right into, I've said it 50 times at this point. Like, I would love a wave-based mode that just carried across the seasons, right? And, they run the risk of it getting redundant or old, but if they could figure out a way to do it, create an arena like Prison of Elders or something where they can incorporate new bosses each, you know what I mean? Something, the new boss for that season, each season. I'm hoping, maybe we see something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Anyways, yeah, so.
So, coming back to, and this was something we'll talk about at the very end, but how the seasons could change and how the world can change. They talk about later in the end of part 3. So we'll come back to that. But they also talked about powerful sources being a problem.
Yeah, we talked about this before the show.
Yeah. As the seasons developed, like how many places there were to get gear and where you had to go to get all that gear and having to rerun old stuff. This
is why I love it being you and I, Cyborg, because we obviously look at a lot of things the same way, but then we interpret them different ways. And how I presented this to you was like, well, isn't that something we wanted as we got past D1, is we wanted things to be relevant. And you can boil that all the way down to just public events used to not do anything for you. So that is the important piece of it. After you and I talked, you elaborated and I kind of understood and saw what you were saying. Like, he uses a specific example of like going back to the Dreaming City, and what you said was, spot on, like having to go back there to do things, well beyond its time. I don't know. You have to
there's two sides
share
to
that
it,
a little bit.
Right.
Yep.
Like, we don't want content that's good to not have any meaning in the scope of the game anymore. Right. Like, okay, it'll give you a specific gear set or this or that. But once you have that, if you tap it out and there's nothing to go back and get, it was at least great to have some of that stuff be relevant in terms of like the power grind or something like that. But Luke's point is that it's not always fun to have to go and run a Dreaming City mission for the 50th time to get the drop that you need when you've like totally exhausted that. And by this season, when I got to that point, like I totally agreed, because I'm like, to power up for the raid, I'm running forges, I'm doing Dreaming City stuff, I'm running like Ascendant challenges for God knows how many times, that stuff just got really tiresome,
right?
Of having to go back and do those things. And so it's a funny problem, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want the content to become meaningless, because then it just doesn't mean anything in the scope of the game. But I guess it's just a problem you're going to have when you have a game as big as this.
Right. Yeah.
Like, should it only be meaningful for a season? And they're going to go on like talk about what their answer to that is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important. Like the core things, the the core activities still reward you, and those stay relevant. But then, like, you know, you made me realize as you were saying that again there, there's still reasons you can go back and want to do those things. Obviously, titles, rolls on weapons. I still don't have the Kindle Orchid that I want.
Collecting stuff.
Yeah, but like to his point, like you said, it's the power part of it, the power climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then having too many sources, where I think what ended up happening was they had to water things down for some places so that they were less impactful, you know. So some places you could get a better increase, you know, on the delta of where you were for your powerful reward, and some would only give you +1 or something. And that just made for like a real head scratching guessing game to me. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing in the game to tell you.
And we covered it a couple of times on the show because Guardians asked us. Yeah.
And of course, my age-old complaint about information in the game, like literally nothing in the game would tell you, because they all say powerful rewards, you know?
Yeah.
How would you know what gave you the best reward on your time? Like if you didn't have other people to go figure it out.
Tooltip or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just gets a little too complicated, I think. So they mentioned a lot of those things are going to be adjusting, including like what rewards give you how much of a gain. And they mentioned that, you know, there may be points at which some powerful rewards are left behind. You know, they will no longer award power above a certain amount. And I think ultimately that's probably what they're going to have to do as the game grows. And that's what they had to do in D1, you know. Mm-hmm. There was stuff for, you know, a year or during the past, like it would give you a certain amount, and past that, when you came to the new expansion, like only the new stuff would give you that better gear. So sometimes this, I think what they're going to have to do as the game gets just really big.
And it's just continuing to grow.
Yep. Only gets bigger. One thing I thought was interesting was he talked a lot about Reckoning, which has been kind of a real outlier in these seasons, and not just like how it worked and how it tied into you know, Gambit Prime and all that stuff, but also the encounter design and how it relied on certain things. And, you know, he comes out and says like it was designed around Well of Radiance. And my complaint always with that mode is you can't do it and have fun without Well of Radiance. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool. He talks about kind of like design rules that they have for making encounters, and that was really cool to see like some of the laws they have for like, right, this is, you know, what's important to make something fun. And then he mentions like, so we broke all these for the Reckoning.
I know, that was funny,
which totally makes sense. And it was because they were, you know, doing it around something that had become like an outlier or like a crutch for a lot of encounters, right? Mm-hmm. And I think while interesting, it makes it for an activity that like doesn't have very good legs now, and can not be very fun, and that stinks. You know, that's kind of the case. And like I can't find anybody that says that they enjoy running it, like they're doing it for a reason. And he just talks about the whole experiment, like of designing an encounter around like a specific thing or like a specific gear or whatever that you have to wear. And I thought that was interesting, but ultimately not very fun, which is what we want out of the game, you know? So I would prefer that they, you know, stick to their rules and make things that are going to be fun, and like, you know, fix the problems. Like, don't design encounters around a problem, you know, fix the problem. And I think that they're doing that moving forward, you know. But my particular gripe is just like how all that played out makes it for a season that just totally went bunk. When there was a lot of stuff that was fun, I think in that season, if it had been done a little bit differently, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if we have it on our overall bullet point list, but he mentions in there somewhere around that about not focusing seasons like that season on an activity.
Yeah, they mentioned like they think, you know, in the future they don't want to make seasons revolve around one particular activity, and I think that that's smart. You know, they mentioned like this season, for an example, is a good one. It doesn't just focus around one thing, and you know, this season I would say has been pretty successful for the game. Mm-hmm. There's a combination of things I think that lead to that, but ultimately, like, the content's got to be good, and there's been a lot to do this season. And I think people liked a lot of the different stuff. Unfortunately, Menagerie got kind of, it was fair weather, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, it didn't get played very long, but people loved it while it was broken.
That's weird. That's a whole nother conversation we've already hit on the front end, but yeah, isn't it weird? Yeah. It's like, I don't know that I haven't ran it too much since then. We wondered if that would happen. But yeah, no, it's been a good season. Plus, we have the solstice and the summer stuff. So naturally, it seems like the summer season has more going for it sometimes.
Right. He does show, and they talk about the UI a little bit. And we always like to take that apart a little bit, and like UI changes, and like overall the UI in Destiny is really, really good. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen some really bad ones in games, and Destiny's is pretty good. But they talk about the I guess the process and trying to improve our UI, especially with like quests and bounties and how all that stuff's displayed. They talked about how disappointed the team was to see our reception to the system we've got now, which is unfortunate. But goes on to say, you know, it's a work in progress, and you know, it's kind of being rolled out as they are able to improve it, right? So
yeah, I thought it was funny when they asked Luke if he had been on Reddit that day or something when they launched the Pursuits tab.
Don't read it.
Don't go.
But we did see a preview of what we're going to get with Shadowkeep, which I think is an improvement. It separates quests and bounties, which that alone I think is going to be helpful, right? Mm-hmm. I just want the Taken King system back.
Right? That's
at least
what
for
I've
the
thought
quests.
about several times.
I loved that system, man.
I did too.
But especially with the quests, like you got like text strings and like information, and it really like allowed them to build on like the story of why you were doing what you were doing, and like offer contextual information, you know? And you still kind of have that, but it's not as in depth with this current system. They're just kind of delivering it a little bit differently, I guess. But what did you think about the updated UI?
Yeah, no, I think it looks great. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, they've got the bounties to the right on their own sub menu, like you said, and the quests on the left. It's still weird for me to go to that menu for it. It's odd to still, you know, be this far into it, and the Pursuits tab still throws me off. Really, it's not that it does that bad. It's just he talks about muscle memory and stuff too, and it's like you even in this regard, you just get used to certain things, and I think this will improve it for sure. This separation. Now, the only other thing is, which has always been a thing in Destiny at different times, is the refreshing of the menu. Like every time I go into my Pursuits, I have to tell it to order them a certain way.
Right. Yeah, to find what
Just
you want.
remember that.
Yeah. There is going to be a hotkey to pull up pursuits in PC, which is nice, but why can't console have that?
Yes, please. I think you're right, though. I think this
it.
is definitely an improvement. Having the two separated alone will help in the breaking of your brain.
Right.
At least for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. They talk next about Menagerie a little bit, which is topical. We were just talking about that. And I found it really interesting what he talked about with the Menagerie, because he talked about runes. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned, so it feels bad to have your fun hijacked by not having a single rune that you need. And I feel like it's a little tone deaf, because that's not at all the problem that people are having. Mm-hmm. If you're not playing at all, you might be having that problem. Like, yeah, there is a grind to level up your chalice so that you can get all the runes. And so the more rare runes, which are like the blue, like those, are a little harder to get. But once you've played for a week or two, and if you're actually doing things in the game, you're going to have plenty of those. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just surprised that the topic he brought up wasn't how rewarding the activity was, or wasn't. Yeah. There was such a big debate over the change that was made with being able to farm the chest, and then he doesn't touch on that at all.
Yeah.
And that surely the numbers of participation in the activity have to be down. So they've got this activity that was hugely successful that suddenly fell on its face, and he doesn't even touch on it. I'm like, what's going on? Like,
that is an interesting realize. Yeah. Because I'm swimming in runes as well. Yeah. And no, you're right for that to be the topic of that particular section.
And hey, I don't want to bust him too much. Like, the point obviously of this is not to, in detail break apart everything that was and wasn't successfable from the season.
Oh, right. Yeah. No. The transparency that he's offering us here is what's amazing. Yeah.
Okay. He didn't talk about that, whatever. Yeah. But I'm just surprised that he brought up Menagerie and then didn't go there at all. Like,
it is interesting though. Was that, what was it about the Menagerie? I think it was in the TWAB. They hinted at a patch upcoming that
it's supposed to make things more reward, or
more rewarding,
more generous.
It is interesting because obviously all of that is intentional decisions. Like, whatever reason, the philosophy there, that I would just love to see the numbers, like you said. We don't have to spend too much time on Menagerie, but obviously it seems like the player count would have drastically dropped. And maybe not. Maybe the numbers would prove differently. But I think that's what we said back when we were talking about it, was, wouldn't you rather over reward than to not have any players wanting to run it, anyways, that's another topic, not for this week, but
yeah. Well, let's see. A couple of these things we already talked about that I've got in my notes, so I'm going to skip over. Talking about the power climb and stuff. One quality of life thing that he mentions that we're going to be seeing in Shadowkeep that I think is really cool and a smart decision is world drop engrams dropping at level. Mm-hmm. So he mentions that like the current problem is that world drop engrams, i.e. like you kill a baddie and he, drops a legendary engram. They don't have a lot of impact right now. And some of that has to do with the fact that it's not dropping at the level that you're at. And so that's going to be changing. It'll be dropping at your current power. And I think that's a great change, not just for making those feel better, but also for how the power climb will work.
Mm-hmm.
For, from the average sometimes player to the, die hard, plays 50 hours a week player, whatever, everybody's going to feel that, because a big problem that a lot of people have is when you're at a certain level or you're trying to power up and you have one or two pieces of gear that are holding you back, right? And this gives you that opportunity to fill those blanks in,
I agree.
And then also have the stuff that's dropping be useful as you're in a big power climb, and not have to, okay, so I got a great, drop on X gun and it has awesome perks, but now if I want to use it in this in-game activity, I've got to go find something to infuse into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be costly and also annoying. So this will be awesome, because if you get a great drop on a piece of armor or a gun or something, you'll be able to use it right away, which is great.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that, and then the next thing we have on here, I mean, that's a huge one. We were talking about that before the show too. Their solution, and I assume this is kind of their solution to what we've seen in the last couple seasons with catching people up.
Yeah.
They've had their bounties and stuff, and yeah.
I thought about friends. I thought about you. I thought about like a lot of people when this came up. So they mentioned kind of the left behind factor, right? Of players having to play catch up, or even players coming back or coming into a new season and having missed one. He mentions, I don't remember what the exact example was, but like playing a game and being told, yeah, come back and find us in 100 hours after you've learned the final hit on Dota or something, and you don't want to have to tell your friends that in Destiny, or have to dump 20 hours into getting some decent gear so they can just do the new activity. So their solution is everybody's going to come in at 750 power when Shadowkeep launches. And then this was what was crazy. Literally everything in your inventory and vault is going to be made 750. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So stop infusing stuff that you don't want to use right now.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have to pay anything to take it with you.
And I assume, I won't assume, this seems as though, does he say, I can't remember, is this like their, obviously this is with Shadowkeep, I wonder if this is what their goal is, like at the launch of each season, I assume. Does he say that in there?
I get this as like a one-time thing.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, I would be surprised to see that. Like,
see, my thought
I have
was
a feeling
this would
that
be what they would do at each season, but maybe not.
I have a feeling that the power delta changes for each season are not going to be as significant as what we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they've definitely hinted at, like, they don't want you to spend half of the season just on the somewhat, not necessarily the right word, but meaningless power grind.
Yeah, and then talking as well about this pinnacle powerful rewards thing they have. Like, I think that's going to play into it too. And like how different we see power changes and stuff like that. But yeah, so some changes there. So it seems like the goal they have there is like level the playing field a little bit for everybody. So everybody can jump in, and it seems like, they're really lining up, New Light and I wanted to say Forsaken, but New Light and Shadowkeep to be a really open, welcoming entry point for new players, for returning players. And I think this is another smart way that they'll be able to do that. Like, you just come in and play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Even if it is just the big fall release, that's a big deal for everything to just start you at the power, the starting power. I will be interested to see what they do for the seasons if they don't do this, like if they just continue like the bounty thing or whatever, the power surge bounties.
What they did the past couple seasons was really smart. Like, like you said, you did a bounty or you got something and you could just catch up, or be like close to power level when the season started. And so if at least they did something like that, I really liked that.
Yeah.
That people, they could opt out if they want, and then they can come back and catch up and play with people pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's about making things a little more accessible, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely can see the challenge on their end. I mean, trying to figure out how to accomplish that in this game. They're definitely on the right path with stuff like this. So,
well, without making things that are supposed to matter, like power level, not matter. You don't want that.
Right.
You don't want to upset or dissipate the investment that people have into stuff that they've already done in previous seasons. Like it doesn't bother me for everybody to be 750 for like the new expansion because the bar is getting raised super high from there, right?
Right.
So like we're already seeing a new, they mentioned, I think, I don't know what we'll call this number, but almost like a soft cap being 950 for the upcoming expansion. And then we're going to see, these pinnacle rewards able to push you up. They mentioned, I don't know if that's the cap, but like for instance, up to 960. So I feel like we'll be brushing 1,000 pretty quick,
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely.
That's why I have this inclination that we might not see that until like later in the year, because that's a big number. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we like, this is totally pie in the sky, but maxed at 999, at the end of next year's content or whatever, and then we saw Destiny 3 or something.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think too, like we get these power benefits from the artifact, correct?
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, just sitting here talking out loud with you about it, if 950 is the max for the entire year, and each season you get a new artifact and you have to get those power benefits
and you
again.
can get knocked back down, right? Because your artifact resets.
It's interesting. Kind of figuring out this together here.
Something there.
Let's see.
So we'll find out. Yeah, lots to chew on here. A lot of changes. Very interesting. So moving on from that, we talked about the seasonal artifact and the power bonus there. And it seems like artifacts are going to have a lot of, I guess, utility, because we'll be able to put seasonal mods on them. Mm-hmm. They mentioned like mods that will, be almost exotic, I guess, or capabilities that'll be almost exotic with your artifact, but just last for a season. So it seems like they'll have a lot of function.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, these artifacts are what we saw in that Vidoc a while back, which had tons of nodes on it, didn't it?
Yeah. They mentioned like a ton of different nodes and ways to expand it and play around with it. I'm excited to see that. Like we're hearing about all this sandbox stuff and different things like that, but the artifacts could be one of the biggest and most impactful changes for the expansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be. So could hit on something really cool there for the seasons. Yeah,
probably why they're keeping that a little closer to the vest right now, right? Because that's going to be a lot of the big surprise and like the new, we're not getting supers or anything like new like that, but I'm certain we'll be getting some interesting abilities and things.
Right.
Yeah. Rise of Iron. Keep thinking Rise of Iron, That's what it makes me think of. Now, we mentioned this earlier. They talk about a new concept called pinnacle power sources. So once you hit 950, you'll only be able to go past that with something called pinnacle power sources that you only earn from end game activities, which will give those that, look for that kind of grind, another thing to, I guess, to chase. And probably another reason to run things like raids and Iron Banner and stuff like that, right?
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe a new PvP activity. I don't know. They have something and it says "and redacted."
Yeah.
What is redacted?
All these hints to PvP.
How dare you redact me? I need to know. Or do you think it's going to be like another, like totally different thing, like Court of Oryx or something like that?
Well, there's just so much up in the air,
Archon's
especially with
Forge-ish.
everything he said. It's like, I don't know, will they do that again? As far as if they were going to, they would launch it with Shadowkeep and then continue it through the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what redacted is? I'm hoping there's also a PvP in-game redacted, but time will tell on that as well.
Yeah.
We shall
We
see.
definitely know there's going to be some kind of activity that they mention. This is towards the end of part 3, but will culminate in something happening, and then that activity will go away.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be PvP. I mean, it could, but who knows?
You wouldn't think with that structure. Yeah, I see what you mean. You wouldn't think that would be.
Guess we'll find
PvP
out.
typically, sticks around.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting. Like I'll probably enjoy that extra chase. Going after the pinnacle power sources to like get that extra power, right? And some players won't really mess with that. You know, I could imagine you not really touching that unless I'm able to get you in a rating again. Like,
well, that's what I was just thinking.
happen.
Is if there's pinnacle power sources, like
not if there's a new in-game PvP activity.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Is like you introduce those, but you don't have in-game options throughout the game. You know, hopefully there is a PvP in-game,
but there could be, you know, those sources from that activity too.
Yeah,
you know,
very true.
Like that's they definitely mention Iron Banner will have those as an option. So it's not to say that the player that's interested in that stuff can't be on that same grind if things are light level enabled like Iron Banner and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, right.
So they next talk about the damage number system, for lack of a better term, like the damage system in Destiny, especially with how like now you can do damage that scales up to like over 1 million and it can't be displayed properly in the game. And so they're looking to remedy that. They mentioned they're going to be refactoring the damage number system, and specifically that it won't necessarily mean that the damage you're dealing is changing. So what this tells me is like they're probably going to reduce things by a multiplier. Like that's what makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, reduce things by a multiple of 10. So while you might normally do like, you know, 1,000 damage, you might do 100. You're still doing the same number, like the same effectiveness, but the numbers will change, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm imagining. But they want to do this so that long term, they're not going to have the problems of things like maxing out like they see. So that'll be interesting, and I'm sure will be a headache for some science-oriented
Yeah, I was just thinking
players.
that.
Poor Merc and Fallout and all those
That
guys.
stings a bit.
Yeah. I don't know I doubt that'll affect anything in the Crucible, but so they may not mess with it at all, but guys who do PvE stuff definitely have some work to do.
Mm-hmm. Many things.
They go on to talk about supers, which was interesting. The quote that I pulled here. So their plan is to reduce the effectiveness of orbs on refilling the super meter and reducing the super energy gained from kills and assists. So effectively a pretty impactful nerf, right?
Yeah.
Basically,
Basically,
super energy.
He says supers are more powerful now than they ever were in Destiny 1.
Which is definitely true.
Yeah. They wanted to make them more powerful, but they went way over to the other end. So now they're trying to reel them back in a little bit, which I think is fine. But, you know, you have to be careful A PvP Guardian thinks that's fine, like myself, because, when you see Bottom Tree Striker running around for 30 minutes in a PvP match. But at the same time, it's like we've been saying this whole time, they've been super focused on the power fantasy. And they got to be careful to not make that go away in any certain regard in the PvE aspect of the game, right? I mean, I think what he says all makes sense and it sounds good. It's just, anytime you don't feel like a super powerful Guardian on the PvE side, it can be a little annoying. So
yeah, he compares it to a pendulum, right? If D2 vanilla year 1 is one end of the pendulum and today is the other end, they want to fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Which I think if they're able to pull that off, will be okay. You want to feel powerful, and he mentions, they want their goal is to make using your super more strategic and more decisive and happen a little less often, so that you got to think about it a little more and use it at crucial times that are going to, impact the game a little more than they do.
Mm-hmm. Again, it just seems like they've built a structure of a game for themselves that is extremely challenging to balance. It's like if we didn't have supers, balancing across PvE and PvP would be maybe a little bit easier. But if, then it's like, okay, well, if we didn't have Crucible, then we could just be super powerful. So they've created a monster.
Right. Well, and they have to design encounters that around the state of things, and things have escalated so much. Reckoning is the proof of what happens when it's gone too far.
Right.
They have to break all their rules to make it work. Otherwise it's just too easy. Right. So, they've got to make that change and, kind of pull the Band-Aid off that, which I think is probably the best way to go. It has to happen.
We're really powerful right now.
Yeah, super powerful, bro.
The next thing.
The next thing. Tell us about the next thing.
The next thing. I was waiting for part 3. I figured I'd have to wait till part 3 to get some PvP news. So there's some teases in here, Cyborg.
There is, man. There's not. There's. If you look at it, man, they're just rubbing our face in it.
I know. I mean, the gist of it is, Luke says, PvP needs some love and attention. They're going to give it, start giving it that this fall. I want to talk about, let's start with the, what they're doing with the playlist. We can talk about the other things, but I do want to just read through these real quick because they're making a lot of tweaks to the playlist. So he even says, we've revised the playlist a lot, and here's how it's going to work. So they will be, with Shadowkeep, removing quick play and competitive nodes from the director. If you're looking for an experience like quick play, we've added Classic Mix, a connection-based playlist like quick play today. Classic Mix will include Control, Clash, and Supremacy. Goes on to say competitive is replaced by 3v3 survival, which now awards glory. And we've also added a survival solo queue playlist that also awards glory. Yes, you heard me right. Survival solo queue that awards glory. They also plan to add a 6v6 control as its own playlist. They kind of add on to that with the potential influx of new players this fall, we want to have a playlist that signals to new players that this is where you start. So 6v6 control, good old classic there. They feel like 6v6 control is the right starting place to introduce new friends to Destiny. Also added a weekly 6v6 rotator and a weekly 4v4 rotator. These rotator playlists are where modes like Clash, Supremacy, Mayhem, Lockdown, and Countdown will appear. And then finally, we've removed some underperforming maps from matchmaking too. So those are all the adjustments to playlists. So
how big playlists is that?
What do we think?
6?
Close, at least.
You've got classic mix. You've got the control. You've got the 4v4 thing. What is that called?
Oh, that's just the weekly rotator, 6v6
weekly rotator.
And a
okay, so that's
4v4.
3,
Yep.
right? Then we've got not elam, salvage team, and then you've got salvage solo. So that's 5.
Yeah, you mean
and
survival,
then there's going to be
right?
Cruci Labs.
You're talking about the glory ones, the survival glory?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said
That's
salvage.
2 different plays. And then you'll have Crucible Labs.
Yes.
So that makes 6.
Yep.
I'm a little worried about playlist bloat.
Well, remember, that was always seemed like it was a concern.
It was a problem
the players
in
too
D1.
thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even just having, I'm more worried about the playlist, like the non-glory related stuff than the glory related stuff. Like having the weekly rotator, and then you have classic mix, and then you have just control. I don't think all those are going to be well populated.
Right.
I can see that. I don't know. I might be underestimating like how many casual or new PvP players are going to be around, but I don't know, man.
I'm excited for the competitive glory stuff. 3v3. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have picked survival. I did see a lot of my feeds. People really would have liked to have seen them go with Clash. Granted, a lot of people think Clash is a bit slow. They'd have to do some tweaks to the score limit and stuff like that. But the solo option is nice as well. That's going to be a nice addition to try to increase your glory each season. But I did find it weird, before that he says, talking about 3s and 6s, and he says player counts being based on a common number like 3 is important. It enables a bunch of activity options for groups of friends to engage in. In Destiny 1, players could run a strike, team up for a raid, go play 6v6, split up and do 3v3 PvP, etc. And they talk about how 4v4 seemed right at the time, but just, was the wrong decision. And I think the community's been saying that for a good while. Like if you're going to leave it 6s elsewhere, 3s just worked in Crucible. So that's cool to see that. I did with that think it was weird that we're still going to have a 4v4 rotator. Am I missing something? I guess so
that they don't have to completely retool all those modes, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, because they were built around it. Yeah.
4v4.
So
the maps
sprinkling it in somewhere in there.
Yeah.
The other big thing about this, and I had to go back and once everybody was talking about it, but he says very quickly, which like just was painful, that Trials of the Nine is on an indefinite hiatus still. And, but he italicized the word 9 when he stated that. So everyone immediately was, speculating, wondering what that was about. And then, like we were talking about before the show, what was the other thing that he said, the Cyborg, that he hinted at?
So they talk about Elam is going to be in Crucible Labs. And they go on to say that they'll go through some different iterations of it, experimenting with like heavy and token revives and different stuff like that. And it will go on to find a warmer home.
Which I didn't catch.
I didn't catch that either until this point. I was like, oh snap, stuff about Trials of Osiris, my dudes.
Right? See, and when I read all of this, I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to process this. I didn't catch those hints at first. So I'm thinking like all we're getting this fall is playlist adjustments. And then, I start thinking about it. I'm like, okay, they've been spending a lot of time on the PvE side of the game, tweaking all these things. All right, I know PvP hasn't gotten much love, but now it's time they're focusing their attention. It's going to be some steps. And playlists, the foundation is where you start. And then I'm thinking, then I start catching wind of some of this stuff. I remember Deej putting his twab that there is a PvP reveal slated here in, the coming weeks.
Right.
So I'm like, why tease us? Like, I would love at some point to see a Trials equivalent, but just this fall, like we really need some sort of PvP end game. So I hope we get something. And all these hints that people started talking about, then the speculation made me feel a little bit better about this Crucible news. I'm not saying it's not great. Like this stuff, getting the attention, this attention is fantastic. Because we're getting 2 old maps back too, right? In with the Elim, and that's
we're getting,
that could just be in labs. Widow's Court and
yes.
What was the other one?
Twilight Gap.
Blanket. Twilight Gap. Yeah. Which
Where's Rusted Lands, by the way? Hello. Hello.
Did they say that would just be in labs with Elim?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's going to be the 2 maps that Elim is on in the labs.
I mean, I hope Crucible Labs becomes the thing that they wanted it and said that they would like it to be, right? And if Elim's in there, I'm going to be spending some time in Crucible Labs. I hope we see it more. And hopefully them putting some attention on elimination is a sign as well. But like I said, all these things are great, and it's a good start, and it's the foundation, and we got to give the PvP some love. But I'm hoping all these hints aren't nothing. Like I hope it's something.
Well, Nate, he also talks about, I'm just thinking about this, but he talks about how essentially like what they have in mind for Elim, it's not totally baked. And they also mention like we don't have the voiceover lines for it yet. We don't have all the I think he even mentions gear and rewards. So it's almost like they're basically developing elimination for Trials of Osiris, and they're just saying like it's not done,
right?
And we're gonna workshop it, and you're gonna be part of that, and it's coming. You know,
which makes me wonder.
I don't think there's any way that somebody could doubt at this point from information that he gives just in his blog post that Trials of Osiris elimination is coming. It's just a matter of when.
Right. Fine tuning it. I hope so, man. I really hope so. Which then makes me wonder what if and what we're getting this fall for the in-game PvP Guardian.
Well, we've got a reveal coming, so there's some hope that something cool is in the pipeline, right? We don't know what it'll be, how significant it can be, but let's hope it's something fun that you can sink your teeth into.
Let's hope.
I
hope so.
Let's hope.
But hey,
we're getting low on time, so we're gonna have to wrap up this part of it, but before we do, the last thing they talk about is a significant change that will be coming with this season. So we talked about this earlier, how Luke talks about specifically even in this upcoming season 10, that the season will culminate in something happening and an activity going away. And that in the future, their plan is that certain activities, and we don't know how significant this is, but certain activities and their rewards will go away for a time. And the rewards themselves, they will plan to introduce from other sources in the future. I'm a little nervous about this. I don't know what your thoughts are. We didn't get to talk about it at all. The thing that I want to take it all with a grain of salt, because we don't know how significant this could be, right? So worst case, you might be thinking, okay, imagine if Forges just went away, and we didn't see them again after the season ended. But they just mention some activities. So it could be that there's like smaller, more bite-sized stuff. It could be missions. It could be quests. We don't know how involved this could be, so I wouldn't get too worked up about it until we know how this works, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I see what you're saying.
There's a possibility, and I could see this happening of, you're going to pay for this annual pass or for this season, and there's going to be stuff that you pay for that will be limited time only, And I'll say that as like somebody who played a lot in the past year, there's stuff that's come in seasons that I just couldn't fully sink my teeth into until later. Like for instance, right now, like I was doing all kinds of other stuff during Season of the Forge from the previous season. Now I'm doing Season of the Drifter stuff in this season,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely going to be that risk of not being able to do everything, or like that fear of missing out factor and all that stuff that could happen with a system like this. And then people feeling a little burned if you paid for something and weren't able to fully experience it, or lose access to something after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can't go back and do it.
Definitely. Yeah, that stinks, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And they talk about how this could be partially a solution for things like file sizes, which I totally see. Being able to delete some stuff out of the game doesn't hurt when you've got a game that's over 100 gigs, I don't know. What do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said. If you can't, that's part of the fun is if it is overwhelming and you can't keep up. I mean, I'm even having that with Solstice right now. I'm not playing a ton right now. There's a lot of different stuff going on, and I'm on the last week and trying to still grind out my blue set, and if that happens every season where things just go away and I can't go back and do it, that could sting a bit.
Yeah.
Like I would have to just make the decision early on. Do I think I have time for this or not?
Right.
But no,
and how well are you going to know if something is limited,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that we'll have some kind of
structure of it. Maybe we will.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I did love what he said before that, though, about they're playing with the seasons. I'm going to read that little paragraph about how they talk about leading into each season. He says, during season 8, a new situation will unfold on the moon. He says he's being cagey for a reason, doesn't want to spoil anything, but he says over the course of the season, parts of the game will change before the situation culminates in an event that will ultimately resolve it, and its content will be exhausted. But this resolution sets up the events of season 9, which again adds something new to the game and resolves it. Something that too will go away, but not before setting up season 10, etc. So, you kind of hinted at this,
guys.
Yeah. You kind of hinted at this a little bit in some different things that we talked about, but just that paragraph seems cool with feeding the seasons, at least maybe from a story perspective, setup wise and cliffhangers into each season. That's exciting.
Yeah, which that part of it's cool, right? Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to talk about how like their goal is for narratively and in every other aspect for Destiny to feel like a living, breathing world. And part of that could mean that stuff happens and then it's over, like
yep.
Things don't repeat over and over. And like in that regard, like what they're saying makes sense. And they're going to have to strike a balance for how that happens. So we'll, I'm sure, see some of that play over the next year, and they'll be able to see how those things are received and iterate on them, and hopefully come up with a system that works and achieves that goal. Because I think a Destiny that is a living, breathing universe could be really interesting. Like, could give us a lot more opportunities for storytelling and cool stuff to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, with stuff like this, they could leave marks on the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you want it to feel like it's lived in, and like things actually happen that matter, which we've had. I mean, in some regards, like, in a big way, like Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, the tower changing and losing our light and Cade dying, spoiler alert. Things like that have happened, and they've handled that well. So we'll see how that goes.
A lot to see in the future.
Yeah, a lot of interesting changes on the horizon, man. The game is really pushing forward into some new places, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. It's what we hoped for. We are right in the midst of it. We're gonna experience each
It's a
step.
new golden age, Guardian.
Oh man, so much stuff.
All right, it's time for some Derp Fam discourse. Am I right?
It is. Yes.
Somebody else talk for a minute.
Yes, we have a lovely speak pipe from none other than the co-founder. Let's take a listen.
What's up, everyone? Co-founder here, longtime listener, first-time caller, answering the speak pipe from Willis33. I'm happy to hear that Willis was able to slur together a couple sentences to challenge me to this speak pipe. I'm also happy to hear CK Shocker make a whole recording without using profanities. Apparently, the shock collar has been working. Thanks a lot to Arrow and Cyborg for this great community. Even when life makes me step away, I always feel welcome back. Without these guys, I never would have met this great group of raiders, PvPers, and some boys to ask where we dropping. Time to make a new challenge out to Brother Elijah. I just swiped right on you. It's a match. You're up.
Co-founder, thank you for answering the SpeakPipe challenge. You know, I love the theme that we get from these and talking about the friendships that people make in Destiny in our community. Because those are like that's the most important thing that I've gotten out of my journey playing this game is the friendships, the friend game, right?
Yep.
And that's
Definitely.
not being trite. Like, I have real awesome friendships that I've gained over every year that I've played Destiny, like new friends that I've made. And I love hearing those things from people in our community. 'Cause that means something, Like leveling up your Guardian, getting a piece of gear. It's cool. It's temporal though, but those friendships can last forever.
Yep. Pulling on those heartstrings. I know it's always, you think about it, at least one thing I always think about and say every now and then as we play Destiny is it's amazing that we all even know each other. It's because of this game.
Absolutely.
Right? Super cool. Building those friendships, man. But good
Brother
old
Elijah.
good old co-founder that's part of it. Had to call out another Guardian.
That's right. You've been
Brother
challenged
Elijah.
in the ways of old. Answer the SpeakPipe challenge.
Answer it as soon as you can, but there's no rush.
That's right.
That's right. And to co-founder, thank you for the kind words, by the way. Appreciate it. Means a lot.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you would like to offer some Derp Fam discourse, you can do so by sending us an email, destinyresetpodcast@gmail.com, or sending us a SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/destinyreset.
We're holding on to a tweet too. We got a tweet this week. Tweet us questions too if you guys want to hear us talk about something. We will try to pick them out as we get them. You don't have to send us an email or SpeakPipe. Sometimes you can fit it in those character limitations of Twitter. But
Yes.
We might touch on that next week.
Twitter and Discord too.
Yes.
All right. Time for our patron shout outs. Do we have any new patrons this week?
We do not, no. I think still a couple pending, but no new to shout this week, Cyborg.
That's okay. Well, if you are listening and you don't know what a patron is, go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Destiny Reset. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support the production budget of our show. If you do so, you get a few perks. You get a shout out right here on the show. You get your name on our website forever and ever. And you get access to a Discord channel just for Derp Fam patrons and supporters. Gives you a little extra access to the guys in this show, namely Cyborg and Arrow. And also you get to talk about weird stuff like bundt cakes, which will be the topic this week. So if you want to talk about bundt cakes, you got to come be a patron.
Who will mention it first in the patron channel?
Yes, I can't wait. What is your favorite flavor? I had one that was blueberry muffin bundt cake tonight. It was pretty awesome with cream cheese icing.
Sounds amazing.
But continued thank you to all of our supporters who month after month support us. It means a great deal to me and Arrow that you do that. I mean, it really does. It makes a big difference. So we appreciate you.
It does. Once a supporter, always a supporter as well. You get the benefits.
That's right. All right, man. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and YouTube at AER0KNIGHT with a 0. What about you, buddy?
CyborgSasquatch on Twitter. You can find us Destiny Reset on Twitter together, or on the web, www.destinyresetpodcast.com. It's your source for all things DRP, including links to subscribe on your favorite podcast app of choice. Hey, we're on Spotify if you've got that. That's a new thing. And then also join the community, discord.gg/Destiny Reset. There is literally over 1,000, maybe thousands of Guardians waiting to make friends with you, to hang out, talk about anything and everything, Destiny, the game, and everything else that you want to nerd out about, and find cool people to play with.
Yep. And our team's amazing. We're actually working up some things right now to try to make the community even more interactive in the Discords and such.
Oh, yeah. Got some stuff a brewing.
Yep. So thanks, team.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please go leave us a review. I see that we have a new review this week, don't we? We
do, yeah. We hit 311 iTunes reviews. I like my notation in the notes. YN Mech. Thank you for the iTunes review. We appreciate it very much.
Can nobody do it like 311? Check it out.
I know. It's like, should we overlay some 311 music?
I listened to that a lot as a teenager. Showing my age.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for those Apple Podcast reviews. If you leave one, it helps us get seen and heard by more listeners like you.
Thank you, Guardians.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, man.
Yes,
came in right
our
under
time
the wire,
limit.
I think. Maybe close.
Very close. All right, dude. No closing this week. Just the usual. Until next reset, have fun playing Destiny 2 and take care, Guardians.